The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauley to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing it right after the Guy Benson Show at 3 and just before Randy Wang at 5 on the 790 KBC News Blitz. Motec on Money, live on the air at 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com and all the podcast platforms for your favorite podcast here. Wild ride on Wall Street this week for stocks and precious metals, cryptos too, and a big announcement from President Trump on his choice for the new chair of the Federal Reserve. New attention on Main Street here in Los Angeles, with the focus here on the painfully slow recovery and rebuilding efforts in the firestorm-ravaged areas of Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. First thing this morning, the big news in the markets was President Trump picking Kevin Warsh as his nominee to chair the Federal Reserve. Stocks traded lower right out of the gate this morning. The president made his announcement ahead of the opening bell, which briefly gave futures a bump, but ultimately stocks did open lower and ended the day lower as well. If confirmed by the U.S. Senate, Kevin Warsh would succeed Chairman Jerome Powell, who's been the target of sustained attacks from the president for not cutting interest rates. The Fed held rates steady this week. Chairman Powell's term expires in mid-May. We saw the dollar posting its strongest day in months after the president confirmed Kevin Warsh as the Fed nominee. Precious metals sold off from near all-time highs after a sizzling, record-shattering rally this year. Violent sell-off in silver and gold. In fact, silver prices sank below $80 an ounce today, just a week after they had surged above $100 for the first time. We saw gold also, which got up to around 5,600, pull back today. Right now it's below 5,000 at around 49.09. All this on the latest reading on inflation, which came in hotter than expected today. December Producer Price Index came in at 3% above the analysts' expectations of 2.7%. Coming up, we'll talk about the markets with Daniel Ives, the top tech analyst at Wedbush, which happens to be headquartered here in Southern California. Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, prominent local economist, will be discussing the latest news on the economy. Big news at the Mouse House in Burbank, where Disney's headquartered. The Wall Street Journal reports Disney CEO Robert Iger has told associates that he plans to step down as CEO and pull back from daily management before the December 31st end of his contract, according to people talking to the Wall Street Journal. Here in Los Angeles, big news. President Trump pushing to take over wildfire recovery in Los Angeles. The president signing an executive order recently attempting to strip authority from state and local governments to permit the rebuilding of homes and other structures destroyed in the January 2025 firestorm. Meanwhile, Los Angeles business leader, civic leader, philanthropist, master entrepreneur Rick Caruso's organization, Steadfast LA, spearheading the firestorm recovery efforts, recently gave out the first new modular homes to fire victims in Altadena free of charge. It was just a few weeks ago that Rick Caruso made the big announcement on his social media platforms that he will be running for governor or mayor of Los Angeles. Rick Caruso is a man of his word and keeps his promises, and joining us live now for what I believe is his first big interview since making that big decision. Rick Caruso is joining us live here this afternoon. Rick Caruso, thank you very much for taking the call today.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for having me on, and it's good hearing your voice.
Wonderful to have you with us. Have you changed your mind about running for mayor or governor? Take it from the top and tell us your thoughts here today.
You know, listen, it weighs on me heavily. I made a decision not that I wanted to do, but I thought, and I do believe was the right choice for the family. You know, my focus was on running for governor, and we were prepared to do that and move forward, but there were reasons that I felt for the best interest of the family, not to do it at this time. So, and it is the right decision from the standpoint it's for the family. And the family, we've had a lot of great discussions. As you know, we're very close, and the kids are very supportive, and so is Tina, and certainly wanted me to do it, but for some reasons I decided not to. But the first call I made after I decided not to do it was to the mayor of San Jose, Matt Mahan, encouraging him to run, which he had been encouraging me to run for governor. And I encouraged him to jump in. And as you know, yesterday he announced that he's getting in the race and is in the race now. And I think that's great. I think he's got a great track record in San Jose. He's a very common sense guy, very moderate, very balanced, and I'm very confident based on what he's done in San Jose, he could do a great job for the state of California.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motec on Money on 790 KABC, live on the air with Rick Caruso. Are you endorsing Matt Mahan for governor?
Well, we'll do that down the road. But, I've been friends with Matt for a long time. I'm obviously very supportive of him since I was trying to convince him to run, and he did run. But we have some things planned for down the road, and we'll handle that. But listen, the state needs a lot of help. There's no doubt. The city needs a lot of help. There's no doubt. And so all of that does weigh on me. And in stepping out of the governor's race, I do want to make sure that there's a really smart, good alternative that can do some great things for the state and get the state on a trajectory that actually works for the people. And we start solving these problems in the state that are very solvable. But, people, our elected officials, in my opinion, are spending so much time on performative kind of actions and, the name calling and, the chest beating and all this kind of stuff doesn't do anything for anybody. Get to work. You got elected to do things for the people and, work together and make some good positive moves in this great state of ours. Nobody came to California to fail, but California is certainly failing a lot of people.
Getting back to your decision and your wonderful family, last time we spoke live on the air here was on January 7th, the day the firestorm broke out. It's also your birthday, and we had a chance to talk about that on the one-year anniversary of the firestorm. And your family was directly impacted by the firestorm right from the start and continue to be, obviously, in the Palisades with Palisades Village and that whole area impacted. Tell us about how your family has been impacted by the firestorms.
Well, as a family, we lost 3 homes, and so we were very impacted. And, it's been, as a father, very difficult to see your daughter lose a home, your son lose a home. And but listen, we are also very blessed, and we are very grateful that we've got alternatives, and doesn't take away the pain of losing a home. But there's so many people out there, Frank, as you know, that have lost everything. There's people that have lost loved ones. Sometimes we forget that people also died in the Palisades and out at Altadena. People lost their jobs. It's a horrendous, horrendous disaster that happened into this area, and completely preventable. We know that now. All the reports have said that. And we've got to have accountability, and we got to do better things. Our elected officials have really let us down, and they should be held accountable.
What about the mayor's race? Anybody that you would say should be the next mayor of Los Angeles?
Well, I'll hold that opinion close at this point, but, there'll be time down the road for me to share an opinion of that.
President Trump weighing in on the recovery efforts this past week, asking the federal government to take over the recovery effort and trying to get the head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, to cut red tape here and get things accelerated. You, of course, have spearheaded probably the most effective of all the recovery efforts so far, Steadfast LA. Give us your reaction to the president's executive order and its potential impact here.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, and thank you for mentioning Steadfast. I'm proud of the team at Steadfast, and they have done incredible things. And we were one of the first groups to stand up and say we're going to work hard to get people back in their communities quickly and safely. And I think we're one of the few that are still standing out there. But that's okay, because we're going to pick up as much slack as we can. And we're getting people back into their communities and working hard at it and rebuilding schools and parks and street areas and downtowns and everything else. And it's the right thing to do, and I'm honored to do it. In terms of the president, what he said and what the order says are really two different things. What the order says deals with federally funded projects that he wants to be able to take over. What he said is that he wants it to be more speedy and quick, and it should be. I think everybody agrees with that. But I'll tell you what I do agree with. All of these elected officials need to work together. And this is where I'm saying the whole performative baloney that goes on between the governor and the mayor and the president calling each other names. Nobody that's a fire victim wants to hear that. What they want is help. And as shameful as I think the city has been on getting people back into their community, and frankly, the county hasn't been much better, the federal government needs to step in with funding. I mean, we need billions of dollars to rebuild infrastructure, really critical infrastructure. Undergrounding power lines and water lines need to be rebuilt, and make sure the communication systems are handled. And the fact that it's been over a year and the federal government has not allocated dollars, I think is wrong. And, you got to put the politics aside. They were all elected to get a job done. Figure out how to work together and get a job done for the victims in these areas.
Those areas include Altadena. And tell us about your announcement there where you gave homes to the fire victims there. Tell us about that.
Incredible family. Rosalina Rodriguez and her family lived in the Altadena for 37 years. Lost her home in the fire, was uninsured. There was no way that she was going to be able to get back there. She has 3 children and 3 grandchildren and be able to rebuild. And she got a free home, which we handed her the keys last week. And it was one of the greatest things in my life, Frank, to be able to call these families. There's 9 families now that we've given away free homes. To call these families and say, you know what, you're going to be back in your community. And on behalf of Steadfast and the Caruso family and Samara, you're going to have a new home. And it's just been wonderful. So we're going to continue to do that. And that's the beauty of the private sector. And I really want to encourage and mobilize the private sector to be leaning in and doing more, because people need our help. There's thousands and thousands of people that need our help. And we can do it. And I'm happy to blaze that trail along with others.
On the air live with Rick Caruso. Samara is the company that makes those homes, right? Will there be more such homes provided there in the Altadena area?
There will be. There's going to be a total of, right now, there's a total of 8 going into Altadena. There's 1 going in the Palisades, and there'll be more coming. So we're continuing to work at it. We're raising money to provide more of those homes. Joe Gebbe, that started Samara, was very generous with the donation of $5 million that kicked off this program, and we're going to build off of that. So there's a lot of good things happening out there in spite of what the mess the city is and some of our other agencies around Los Angeles. And that's why I really believe the private sector, in order to turn this city around, the private sector has to step up and get involved and demand change. And it can happen with that.
Tell us what's happening at Palisades Village and that whole area, which is still being rebuilt.
Well, we're busy in the Palisades. We took all of our stores and we took everything out of the stores, took it down to the raw wood. We want to make sure there was no contaminants left in there. We're now in the process of rebuilding everything back, and we're going to be reopened in August. And we're going to have great restaurants, great stores, and I think it's going to be as popular, if not more popular, than it was before the fire. So I'm very hopeful, and I hope it gives a lot of people in that community hope, since we're coming back, that they'll come back and rebuild their homes. And I see that happening now. People are really looking at the village as the anchor of the town and what we saved around it. There's a city block that our firefighters were able to save. And so there's going to be a little downtown. It's going to be cool and nice, and it's going to give people a place to hang out. And like I said, more than anything, give people hope.
What's it going to take to turn Los Angeles around at this point, across the board, economically, business-wise, crime, homelessness, and the whole works?
It's going to take the private sector being involved, private people being involved. It's going to take electing people that are actually competent, and we've got to change leadership, and you got to change the city council, and you got to change the priorities that some of these people have, laid out that aren't doing a damn thing for anybody. They're actually hurting the city, and all of these problems can be solved They just have to have the leadership with the guts and the wisdom and the experience and the management skills to do it. And frankly, we don't have that. And so that's why things are deteriorating around LA. We don't have building happening in LA. We have the lowest housing starts in 10 years right now in Los Angeles. You know, you're going to have affordability. You got an affordability crisis because we're not building. And we got to reduce the cost of living in Los Angeles in order to keep businesses here and young people here and growing families here. We have a police department that's the lowest number probably in the last 25 or 30 years, the lowest amount of cops, and getting smaller. And that's impacting quality of life and crime and livability. I would bet you, Frank, any given point in time, there's only maybe 200 to 300 cops on the street patrolling the whole city. That's how bad it's gotten. When I left DW or LAPD as the police commissioner, we had gotten it up to 10,000. And, you know, this mayor's got everything going in the wrong direction. That's just the reality of it. And, you know, polls have come out and been very clear how frustrated people are with her, and it's a shame. But, you know, that's who the city elected, and we got to figure out how to change the direction. But it can happen. I'm never going to give up on LA, and I'm going to work as hard as I can as a private citizen to do my best to improve the quality of life in LA.
And it is to be noted you served as the president of the LAPD Commission. And big news, of course, you're a very sought-after speaker at all the big business conferences. So I have to ask you, what about the big announcement today about the new Fed share and your thoughts about the economy here in 2026?
Well, you know, I don't know much about the new Fed share other than what I've read, you've read, everybody else has read. I'm actually right now down in Miami at a business conference, and we've talked a lot about the economy and you know, the local officials, the federal officials that I've talked to that are down here are bullish on the economy going forward. The 10-year is going to stay roughly where it is, maybe get a little bit lower. The consumer confidence seems to be holding up. You know, we've got an incredible amount of growth happening in the economy. I don't know if it can sustain that. I think we're tracking about a nominal 5% or so. But, you know, that's very good. And we're seeing it on our properties. We're seeing actual growth of sales. We're seeing actual growth of attendance on our property. Retailers are expanding, but it's happening in, you know, really some limited and isolated areas. But I continue to be bullish, at least for this coming year. So let's play it out and see how it goes. But I think we're going to have a good year. What we have to figure out is how to lower the cost of living in the city and the state. It's just too expensive for people to live here. And you can't have people driving to work and taking 2 hours and then 2 hours to go home. That's unsustainable. So that becomes a death cycle in terms of attracting businesses and growing businesses in this region.
Rick Caruso, on behalf of everyone, thank you for your steadfast leadership in Steadfast LA and across the board. You're the winner in every way as far as I'm concerned, and we're so grateful to you for all you do, and thank you so very, very much for sharing your time with us here. We'll let you get back to the conference there, and God bless you and your family. Thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Frank, you're the best, and you're the voice of this region, and God love you, and God bless LA. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Rick Caruso, live with us here on Motec on Money on 790 KABC.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
The CJ Pearson Show.
I'm CJ Pearson, and I'm the host of the CJ Pearson Show. Every week, we'll take on the biggest cultural, political, and moral battles in America head on.
From a perspective you won't hear on mainstream media.
No spin, no filters, and no apologies.
Straight talk and fearless, real perspective.
Family, faith, country, bold truth, real conviction, zero permission. This is the CJ Pearson Show.
The CJ Pearson Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Sending gold and silver prices sharply lower after that sizzling record run-up. We saw gold up at around $5,600 this week. It has ended the week at $4,900, $9 or so, down about $400 or so on the day. The price of silver also under pressure in a big way today. Was around $118 or so earlier this week, back down to $85 an ounce. Down about $29 on the day, a drop of about 25% to $85.25. Looks like the most active gold futures contract dropped for its worst one-day decline on record. The decline in the front-month gold contract was the biggest seen since January of 1980, when that song was popular that we just heard. Precious metals have set a series of record highs recently and also were volatile earlier this week. Silver prices sinking below 80 an ounce earlier today, just a week after they had surged above $100 an ounce for the first time. The most actively traded silver's futures plunged 31% today, its biggest one-day drop since March of 1980. And the front-month contracts for gold and copper futures dropped 11% and 4.5% respectively. The Dow down 179 in all this at 48,892. The S&P 500, which was at a record high earlier this week, closing down 30 points today at 69.39. It had popped above 7,000 earlier this week. The Nasdaq down 223 at 23,462. Coming up later this hour, we'll be speaking to the top tech analyst in the world, and that is Dan Ives from Wedbush. He'll be joining us live in the next half hour. The VIX index up 3% today. The yield in the 10-year note at 4.24%. President Trump picking Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair. The price of oil also in the spotlight, getting close to $70 a barrel in London, 65 and change in New York, as tensions are at a fevered pitch right now between the U.S. and Iran heading into the weekend. Motec on Money continues here, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. A lot to talk about on the local economy with the firestorm recovery efforts continuing. I see the LAEDC had a big conference on this recovery effort recently. The former head economist at the LAEDC is joining us live here on the air right now. Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, veteran economist, principal at Kleinhenz Economics. Dr. Kleinhenz, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
I almost don't know where to start with so much going on. That's right. First of all, let's talk about Los Angeles with the president looking to cut red tape here in the firestorm recovery areas. We just talked to Rick Caruso about this, you might have heard. And give us your take on what's happened here over the last year since this horrific, deadly firestorm occurred and the recovery that continues.
Well, a quick rundown on the numbers, if you haven't already gone through them, about 16,000 structures, including about 12,000 homes were lost or damaged in the fires, the two fires. And as of now, about 1/5 of the homes have permits to rebuild. So, you'd think, well, that's really slow. And indeed, that's the case. But our experience in California with so many other fires is that, recovery doesn't take months. It takes years, maybe 6 or 7 years. And I think that's probably that's the reason the president would like to see red tape cut. But a lot of the things that drive rebuilding are determined at the local level. So I just worry that the ability of the federal government to bring about change at the local level might be limited.
You also, of course, served as one of the top economists for the California Association of Realtors. I guess another big story today was that rents have come down here in the Los Angeles area. A lot of people are leaving the area due to economic reasons. Certainly the slowdown in the film industry is another factor, in addition to, of course, the horrific firestorms wiping out homes and businesses. What do you see ahead for real estate, certainly in the fire-scarred areas and throughout the area here?
Yeah, well, so it's true that LA County and Southern California and the state have had a difficult time in recovering population since the pandemic. And then, of course, what's been happening on the immigration front has not helped, because we rely heavily on immigrants to bolster our population numbers from one year to the next. That's been the case since 1990. And that does translate into impacts on the local housing market. So I don't see a lot of improvement in the housing market as we go forward. Yes, it's good to see that rents have pulled back a bit, but I think that we would expect to see the long-term trend is still upward, because we have a limited supply of rental units, not just in LA City, but around the region. Home prices, although they've taken their sort of seasonal break that we saw in the month of December, eventually are going to be on the rise as we move toward the busy season in February, March. And sales, I think, are not really going to go too far, because I don't expect to see much relief on the mortgage rate front. We've got a hot economy, GDP growth on a quarterly basis in the 4% range. The unemployment rate's come up a little bit nationally, but it's not come up a whole lot. There are a lot of reasons to think that the Fed is going to move very slowly to cut key rates. And so that means yet another difficult year for the housing market.
On the Air Live with veteran economist Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, principal of Kleinhenz Economics. You also follow the job reports very, very closely. Can you give us the latest? I see we have new readings here on the state and local job numbers.
Yeah. So first of all, at the state level, the unemployment rate was 5.5%. We've been right around that 5.5% number for quite a while. And many would say, well, that's quite a bit higher than the U.S. rate. But the fact of the matter is that's pretty much the case, and has been for many years, because we have a different mix of industries that behave differently, and that affects the unemployment rate. So I'm not terribly concerned about the fact that our state unemployment rate's at 5.5% compared to 4.5% for the nation. Locally, our unemployment rates for LA County are around 5%, the Inland Empire around 5%. And of course, Orange County is always lower. They're at about 3.9%. Job growth has been very weak. It was weak through the year 2025. So we did get numbers through the end of 2025 just the other day. And essentially, the labor markets are sputtering. Very weak job growth overall. And the job gains are really concentrated in a handful of industries, whether you're looking at the state or local. And those industries are healthcare, which is really the big player. If we didn't have healthcare job gains, we might see net job losses across the board. But then leisure and hospitality and government have also made significant contributions to job gains. But a whole host of other industries, including some very important industries like tech and manufacturing, have seen job losses over the year.
What about the entertainment industry and Hollywood, fleeing Hollywood and all that?
Yeah, also contributing to the job losses. They're part of what's called the information sector. And of course, we've been seeing job losses in the entertainment industry, motion picture and sound recording industry for the last few years. The pandemic, of course, hit them hard. Then we had the strikes, and we had business fleeing to other parts of the country, if not the world. So this industry has really hit upon difficult times. It's had, bad times before, but a whole host of things coming together at the same time has really adversely affected it. So it's going to be some time, I think, before it comes back. But the job losses we saw in that sector this year weren't nearly as bad as they had been a couple of years ago. We're just still looking at a very difficult situation for that industry. And I'm not sure that the California tax credits are going to help a whole lot, but they certainly can help some.
On the Air Live with Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, economist, principal Kleinhenz Economics. We're speaking on a day in which the president announced his choice for Fed chair. Kevin Warsh is the guy. Your reaction to that, and what's that might mean for interest rates and the economy this year?
Yeah, I'm not a Fed watcher. There are some people who spend most of their careers just looking at the Fed and its actions and try to figure out what the next move is going to be. But he's viewed as an inflation hawk, but he's also a loyalist to the current administration. Of course, the issue here that many in the profession are worried about is the continued independence of the Fed and whether or not it'll be able to maintain that independence with this appointee. Keep in mind that so much Federal Reserve Bank policy is made not by one person, but by a group of people who have long-term appointments that are supposed to insulate them from making politically motivated decisions. So, my thought is that I'm expecting that the system is going to work. I know that the new appointee is going to get a lot of pressure to cut rates, but it'll be very difficult to justify that when we've got growth rate for this coming year, for 2026, that's probably going to be in excess of 2%, with inflation above the Fed's target. The last thing in the world the Fed should be doing is cutting rates when we have these kinds of indicators that are suggesting the economy is continuing to grow and inflation continues to be a problem.
One bright spot, it looks like aerospace experiencing a renaissance. A lot of attention focused on the next week, the Artemis launch, and the SpaceX, of course, going strong with launches here in California as well as in Florida. And we were reminded of the space shuttle program. The space shuttles built here in this area back in the 70s and 80s, and the 40th anniversary of the Challenger disaster marked this past week. It's hard to believe it's been that many years. But what about this renaissance in Southern California aerospace with a lot of private companies coming up big?
I think it's very exciting. So back in 1990, before the end just as the Cold War was ending, we had about 130,000 plus jobs in the aerospace industry in LA County. That dipped over time to under 40,000. Now it's in the neighborhood of 50 to 53,000 jobs. I think last year in LA County we had 51,000 jobs, and the industry has transformed itself. It's a different industry. We don't have as many manufacturing jobs as we once did, but we have a lot of leading edge small companies, as you say, a lot of private sector, smaller firms, including startups that are exploring the edges of aerospace. And so honestly, I mean, most of the work that's being done has more to do with space than aviation. But that's where we are in the 21st century. So it's exciting to see Artemis and SpaceX. It's great to see so many smaller companies dotting the landscape here in Southern California that are also contributing to growth. So I think, and do keep in mind that the LA area has a large number of aerospace and other types of engineers that can fuel growth in this industry. So I think it has a lot of upside in the years to come.
Terrific. Economist Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, Principal Kleinhenz Economics, and be sure to follow him on social media as well with his various conferences coming up. Dr. Kleinhenz, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
And thank you, Frank.
Out to the freeways we go now. In just a moment, Daniel Ives from Wedbush will be with us to talk about the market action today. That and more straight ahead. But
the UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
My name is David Goss. I am joined by two icons of the game, Megan Klingenberg and Ale Bedoya.
It's just been so fun
being a part of this community that we are building.
Hopefully we'll be not just a niche sport here in our country, but also even more respected across the globe.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We are excited to cover it all here at the U.S. Soccer Podcast. It is going to be a big year. Kling, red card, or play on?
A play on.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Motec Money continues here, 790 KABC. The biggest names in business comes to one place, and that's this one right here. It was great speaking to Rick Caruso earlier this hour. We just talked to Dr. Robert Kleinhenz, a prominent economist, who, by the way, will be giving his economic forecast for the Inland Empire on February 17th at the Inland Empire Economic Partnership State of the Region Conference. And joining us live now is Daniel Ives, Managing Director and Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities, which happens to be headquartered here in the Los Angeles area. He rang the opening bell on Wall Street recently. He was at Davos, and he's been on the financial networks all day long, reacting to this wild ride on Wall Street this week for stocks and precious metals, cryptos too, Apple earnings, and the list goes on. Daniel Ives, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Great way to end the week with you, Frank.
That's so wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And take it from the top. What caught your attention this week, and give us your reaction to the wild moves, especially in gold and silver, which was the focus of attention today.
Yeah, obviously, with new Fed chair, the view a little more hawkish. So you saw just, the massive sell-off on silver and gold. Yeah, look, I think maybe a bit of an overreaction, but look, I think this was a week where it was divergent tech earnings, right? I mean, you saw robust numbers from Meta, robust numbers from Apple. Microsoft, great quarter, but obviously took the stock down because of CapEx. Look, Frank, I think it speaks to it's going to be a stock picker's market. The AI revolution is happening into its next gear, but some of these gyrations, I think it's just more digestion period and speed bumps in terms of the broader tech trade.
What about Kevin Warsh? What do you see ahead under his Fed chairmanship if he is approved?
Look, I believe it's one where you're going to see more aggressive cuts. I mean, Trump is not, even though Warsh is viewed maybe as more hawkish, going back to, some of his history, I think the reality is that maybe he's not as much for QE, but I think he is definitely someone that's going to come in and be much more accommodative in terms of cuts. And I think this is something where it's important. It was an overhang, and I think at the end of the day, the person that many thought was going to get this got it. And again, Frank, I thought in Polymarket you were a small chance to maybe get it, but obviously it didn't happen.
You're too kind. Let me ask you this: what about cryptos here in all this? Bitcoin is taking a hit this week at around 83.9 here at the moment. Is Warsh a crypto guy, and what do you see ahead for the cryptos in all this?
He's very pro. I mean, he's very pro crypto, and that's the other thing is that, look, I think in these types of moves, there's the knee-jerk reactions in terms of what we saw with gold and silver, and obviously, some of the other moves that we're seeing with crypto, but he's pro-crypto. And I think that's important as this plays out. Now, look, it's a longer process as he actually goes, through, getting approved, through the Hill. But as you really start, the big question with him is it Warsh from 2008, 2009? Or is it more the one from the last few years? And I think that's more, what Trump's getting.
Very interesting. So, and of course, let's talk about the Middle East for a moment with an armada surrounding Iran, U.S. aircraft carrier groups, plural now, apparently in that area. Any moment now there could be some big news related to Iran. The price of oil got a spike this week, close to 70 or so in London and around 66 here now in New York. What are your thoughts about what's happening there?
I think, when you take it away, you can say geopolitical jitters, but it's bullish for the market. When the bad actors have been gone, Venezuela and Iran, it drives oil lower, and there's less tail risk going on in terms of globally. And I think that's something that's important. And me and you have talked about, when these things come, it's very easy to get caught up in some sort of dystopian view. The reality is that, it's somewhere the market takes these in stride. And I think it's one where everyone knows that something's going to happen in Iran, and I think it's not a surprise.
What do you see ahead next week? With, of course, the Middle East hanging out there as an open question and developments there. with this volatility in precious metals. Do you expect that to continue, or have things bottomed out here now with gold and silver? And by the way, platinum and palladium also coming off big from their recent record highs, and kind of a choppy market here. What are you going to be looking for in the week ahead?
Well, look, I think what the big focus is really going to be Google, Amazon, Palantir earnings. I mean, it's tech earnings that are really going to be a big focus next week for the market. You guys see settling of what we see on gold and silver. Gold more, right? I mean, we've talked about like silver, obviously, it's had monster. You're seeing just massive moves here. And I think you probably see some sort of settling out, especially now with the Fed chair done.
All right, we haven't mentioned AI yet. NVIDIA pulling back today down $1.38 at 191 and change. What about the Mag 7 and NVIDIA here?
Look, I mean, you look at tech earnings bullish for NVIDIA. I mean, you look at SanDisk and memory. I think it's very important with tech trade. You got to kind of put all the breadcrumbs together. CapEx is robust. There's no slowing down in terms of the AI revolution build out. And there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution. And it's led by Godfather of AI, Jensen, NVIDIA.
All right, let's talk about Apple for a moment while you have the chance. What caught your attention in their earnings report?
I mean, those are robust numbers. I mean, iPhone, they crushed across the board. China is actually a huge tailwind. The stock, it was a little bit of a, sort of Larry David shrugged his shoulders reaction. But I believe this is really going to be about AI. And look, the consumer AI revolution comes through Cupertino, which is why we continue to be very bullish in Apple. And I think it's one where the reaction was subdued relative to what I believe is a stock that should be up 5 to 8%.
Love all of your research write-ups. Tesla also making news this week, and big changes there. The stock got a pop today in all this, of nearly 14 at 430 and change. What about that Tesla news this week?
Well, look, I mean, obviously it was a really good quarter, but most importantly, it's about robo-taxis and cybercab. I mean, the autonomous chapters now come Tesla. We talk about it in base case 600, bull case 800. It's not about deliveries. This is about now the AI chapter of Tesla, and autonomous and robotaxi launch is going to be key. And then you kind of add in there in terms of the SpaceX XAI news, in terms of potential merger there. Look, Musk, brick by brick, he's building an AI powerhouse. And I think when it comes to physical AI, two best physical AI plays, it's NVIDIA and Tesla in the world.
And you got the SpaceX IPO coming up too. And what's your thought about how SpaceX might link up with one of his existing entities, or what's going to happen?
Well, I think that's the smart move. I mean, we've always said SpaceX XAI, Tesla owns more of XAI, the $2 billion that they're just going to invest. And I think eventually Tesla will own a piece of SpaceX, because essentially he's building his own ecosystem. And that's why it's like, when you look at what's happening in the market, it's easy to get caught up in the daily or the weekly gyrations. The reality is that we were in a fourth industrial revolution, and for the first time in 30 years, U.S. is ahead of China in tech, and it's led by big tech.
What a way to end the week. Daniel Ives, Managing Director and Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush, thank you very much for joining us live to cap off a big week. Live with us here on Motech on Money on 790 KABC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang here on 790 KABC.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.